So if you guys don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and change to interview mode, and we're going to be talking about game changers. What was the driver to create a standardization for your properties? What was the goal?
All right, I'll get started here. Thank you once again for BirchStreet for hosting us here. I'll take you back in time a little bit. So let's go back. I joined the company about 11 years ago. And let's go back at that time, shortly after we started implementing BirchStreet. So about 10 years ago, Montage had 3 branded properties only. 3 branded properties. So smaller organization, but we had standardization in mind from day one. That was an important point because we knew that we needed to scale up and we needed that structure to accommodate our growth. So we had that in mind from day one, and because we knew that it was going to create an efficient and effective process for us, and while providing the controls, the audit, and of course we were looking to go digital with the papers and everything. That was another driver for BirchStreet implementation, but those are the main things. Tasha, would you like to add anything to this?
Yeah, for us, it's really standardization. How can we continue to grow, and what is the best way for us to grow? One of those was going digital and using BirchStreet for that process, both for procurement to start with, invoice processing, and for CapEx. Those are the 3 main modules that we were using to begin with. And with that, we started not only getting feedback from the properties we were using, but as we were looking to scale, what type of controls we wanted to put in with that process to create a standard process across the board, as far as our training, our implementation, not only at the corporate level, but with BirchStreet as well. We've been able to work so well with BirchStreet in creating those standards, the gold standards that Andres keeps talking about, and has been mentioned throughout the process. It's really helped us now bring on new properties, and we can bring them on, if we have to, in a matter of like maybe a month. So it's so important to have not only what your vision looks like as far as your corporate standards, but what that's going to look like down at the property level as well.
And see that it all goes in a loop. At the end of the day, if you have all the decisions made, it's just you can keep moving as fast as you can. There have been situations in which we are requested, hey, can we deploy a property in a week? Well, there's a lot of information that goes into it, a lot of decisions. but what type of implementation you want? What type of quality do you want, right? Which leads me to, as you're implementing these standards, what teams got involved into providing feedback? So can you enlighten us on all the different teams that interacted? Do you get any pushback? How did it go?
It's not just corporate teams that we involve our properties as well. Our executive team, our GM, the end users, we get feedback from them to keep improving essentially our product. Because that's what we have. This is a product that we're giving to our internal users. So then our internal users can then provide this extraordinary product for our external users. So we, involve at the corporate level, retail, food and beverage, operational team, accounting, finance, IT, all the main components there to help, really help this process. And we also then take the feedback when we do implement this with BirchStreet. Our standardizations are at new hotels. We have existing associates that go there from every existing hotel we have who have different specialties, and we get feedback from them to make sure that we are really putting forth the best effort, the best product. What went right? What didn't go right? How can we keep improving to keep our gold standard at the right level?
As our VP of Learning says, feedback is a gift. So we capture or try to capture as much as feedback as possible. But it's so important to note that this is not necessarily a corporate mandate. And it's a joint journey that involves everyone, especially the finance teams. I think the directors of finance, assistant directors of finance, and purchasing teams, the directors of purchasing or purchasing managers, are very vocal about these things. But I will also mention that, think of it like a stool with three legs, right? There's us, the corporate team, the enterprise vision, and then there's the property level, and then BirchStreet. With everything, all the feedback that we get, we have to keep looping in BirchStreet to make sure to validate our vision. Does this make sense? What are the best practices? And continue to keep everyone looped in.
Perfect. I know that based on those situations, there will have been any pushback, like maybe culinary team at some point, maybe a receiving team. How did you address the change management situation? I'm assuming a lot of people ask this question: what is in it for me? How am I gonna get less time doing my job than what I'm doing right now? How this is gonna benefit my day to day?
Well, for me, one of my mentors said early on when I first really started in the hotel industry itself, and it was right when we were going through the 2008 recession and things were changing, is that he said, Tasha, change is inevitable. Get on board or you're not gonna make it. I'm like, all right, well, change is here. It's hard for people to accept change. It truly is. And part of what we have to do is we have to look at how the end user is going to see that change. How is it truly going to affect them? How can we appeal to them when it comes to change? So understanding their department, their process really helps us when it comes to change management. It helps us appeal to them. For example, Andres, if you lose your job, that's a big change, right?
Yep.
What's going to happen there? It's, your home, your house is your individual
That's not a good example. That's not a good
I know, right? Sorry, we're
No.
just letting you know here.
No, but it's true. If something that causes a big impact, either you have to find a way to adjust it, but then also the benefits of what you're going to get.
You do.
At the end of the day, the tool is to help you be more accurate, get more results. Sometimes it takes a little time to get used to, but you get all the reports maybe that you were not getting before. You get all the analytics that you were not getting before. So it's understandable, and I have seen it on site because I've been on property, and we will get, and sorry to against any chef, sorry, not against any chef, but culinary teams are a good example. Do you want me in the kitchen or you want me doing computer stuff? Well, the answer is both, right? Because we want to make sure that you get what you need, but we also give you the experience and the same user experience that you're expecting from an automation. So in this case, that has been the group in which normally we get pushback, and then we go to another property and says, I want it all. Do it now. But yeah, it's just ways of change management, but we always try to put the best foot forward, which is we're going to help you make sure that everything that is your goal is something achievable that we can do with the system.
So I am glad that change management is coming up a lot today. And I know that there's a session dedicated to this later in the afternoon. But I'll mention late Jack Welch once said, change before you have to. So the key here is to be able to change in anticipation of the future. And this is a notion of futurism as well, for those of you familiar with these things, but there's the probable future, potential futures, and looking at the possible futures and plausible futures, and evaluating all of those and to see where you're gonna land, and potentially also looking at things like, if I don't make any change, where am I going to land? Where is this going? And change is inevitable, but it's also scary. That's understandable. So there are some tips and techniques, of course, that could be utilized to create some ease for all the users. And just try to make them as part of that change, again, so that they own the change that's coming up. And make sure it's in manageable chunks. right?
Yeah.
We're talking about gold standards. There's 10K gold, 18 gold, K, 24K. So you can start with the lower value and continue to go up. And you don't have to standardize everything at once. And keep it simple, make them part of the change so they join the journey with you.
And may I ask one last question as we come to time, but what has been the direct value, the bottom line, how all of this has helped you? What information you were able to get? Because I'm assuming, because my experience has been, if I get better in the back end, then I have a lot more time to provide better service to all my guests. What is the direct value they have got from all the different standardization?
Direct value, of course. So the bottom line is, we're talking about experiences here, right? Mm-hmm. Hoteliers, hospitality professionals. There's the associate experience and the guest experience, as well as the partner experience, where it could be various ownership groups or the vendors that we work with and so forth. So the bottom line is increasing value across that ecosystem, the experience ecosystem, and while reducing waste as much as possible. For those of you familiar with the lean and agile concepts, the goal is to increase value and then reduce waste. So while we are standardizing things, we're no longer spending time on customizing each property's setup. It's just a copy, right? And then there are a few things like the sales tax and yes, approval flow adjustments may be needed, etc. But much simpler, easier implementation, so we can and the team can focus more on value-added tasks.
Yeah, for the value, really, for my point of view, especially in the AP world, is how can we pay our vendors faster? How can we reduce the amount of issues that we see? And it really does start from our properties and the purchasing process and really understanding that and what value it's going to have to them building all the way up. When our properties do a purchase order from the get-go, it then not only helps follow compliance with approvals, which does come from a corporate standard, but from there it goes to our suppliers right away. We no longer have to keep going to their websites. We no longer have to go back and forth with them. We can send them a purchase order right away of what we want. There may be key times we have to get quotes or estimates from them, and that helps drive that process as well. But from there, now our vendors, we have them putting the PO on the invoice. It then comes in from the vendor when they send it in to our processing center and comes into BirchStreet. And when the product or service is completed, our purchasing team does the receiving. And AP doesn't even see that invoice anymore because it completes that three-way auto match. So now we can spend more time on those exceptions and reducing the amount of properties one person spends time with. We can now create that efficiency on standardizing and create that value for our properties and being able to provide them a greater service that they wouldn't be able to do on site. And for my point of view, that's the biggest thing, is our customer is our internal customer. We want to provide them value, but the value really starts from the bottom, from the chef who wants to place their bread order, and they want to get that bread order, but their bread vendor who wants to be paid every week wants to get paid timely. So it's really helping show everyone the value and sometimes experiencing those hiccups that really help them see what the value and the benefit of having a standard process and using a system like BirchStreet to really help us create that value internally. And then also it creates that value in us tracking what's occurring within our company. It really does, it provides those benefits for all levels. For those who don't even use it but want the reporting from it. There's valuable information coming everywhere from BirchStreet.
I appreciate the valuable feedback. I know it has been a success on how you continue to replicate and even faster implementation. So I appreciate all the feedback for participating with us today. So thank you so much, everybody. Thank you. Thank you, guys.